The silence was brutal. I had just landed what I thought was the perfect line, and it died right there on stage. I scanned the room. Nothing but blank stares and crossed arms. The guy in the second row yawned loudly. And in that moment, I realized something. It doesn't matter how smart you are, how good your content is. If you can't connect with your audience emotionally, you're just dead in the water. Hey there, I'm Lord Al Jensen, the founder of Next Stage Communications. Since 1974, I've delivered more than 7,500 talks from stage. I've coached TEDx speakers, corporate leaders, entrepreneurs, pastors, you name it. I've even taken home top honors in storytelling contests that were judged by professional speaker bookers. So when I talk about the power of story, this isn't just theory. This is what I've lived, what I've taught, and used to help speakers rise above the noise and become truly unforgettable. And the one lesson that I've learned again and again is this. The difference between a good talk and a transformative message is always the story. But not just any story. The right story, told the right way in the right moment. And that's what we're diving into today. Not how to add a little story like it's a sprinkle on top, but how to craft stories that captivate, that connect and convert. In this episode, you will learn why most storytelling advice just falls flat and how to avoid the 3 connection killers that sneak into even the best talks, and how to use one well-placed story to make your message 10 times more powerful and more memorable. And here's a little micro hook for you. By the end of the episode, you'll see exactly how to use a story to sell your idea without ever sounding like you're selling. So if you're ready to stop just talking and start transforming your audiences, if you only take one thing from this episode, let it be this. The story is not the star. The transformation is. When we talk about storytelling, most people immediately start flipping through their mental highlight reel. What's my funniest story? What's the most dramatic thing that's ever happened to me? What's a story where I look good? And listen, that's natural. But it's also the reason that most stories just fall flat. Because here's a hard truth. A story that's interesting to you does not automatically mean it's valuable to your audience. If your story doesn't tie directly into what your audience needs to hear, it just becomes noise. And in today's world, no one's sticking around for noise. That's why this next line is so important, and I don't say it lightly. If your story does not connect to your core message, it's just a performance. And really, performances don't change lives. Now, they'll get polite applause, maybe even a laugh or two, but really, they just don't stick. And that means your message won't stick either. Look, I've seen and I've told plenty of those dead-end stories. You know the kind, they sound like they're going somewhere, they start strong, they build tension, and then nothing. No lesson, no point, no reason the audience should care, should remember, or act on it. Let me give you an example. A speaker once told me he was going to open his keynote with this gripping story. He was on a flight that had hit major turbulence. Flight attendants were crying. Passengers were screaming, and he thought, this is how it ends. Then, just like that, the flight leveled out. They landed, and all was well. And his takeaway? That moment reminded me to be grateful for life. Now, gratitude's great, but let's be real here. The story didn't do anything. It didn't connect to a specific message. It didn't give the audience anything actionable, and it didn't make them feel anything beyond a temporary blip of curiosity. That story was all set up. No payoff. It was, in other words, a dead end story. Now, let's contrast that with something that works. Another speaker told me a story. Super simple, very relatable. He was delivering one of his very early talks. He had rehearsed it to perfection, word for word. His slides were sharp, notes were all dialed in. He steps on stage and delivers the whole thing. And the audience just stared. No laughs, no nods, no energy, just a wall of silence. And here's the line that turned the story from A to electric. That moment taught me something I never forgot. A great talk isn't about saying the perfect words. It's about making a real connection with the people in the room. Bam! Now that's transformation. It's no longer just a story about him bombing. It's a universal truth. It's relatable. It's real. And it reframes what it means to speak well. That's the power of a story with a point. A story that serves something bigger than just the story itself. Now, let me hand you something that you can use immediately, what I call the 3 alignment questions. Every story you tell should answer these 3 aspects. What do I want the audience to feel? This is the emotional goal. Do you want them to feel hope, to feel frustration or urgency, maybe confidence? Emotion is the entry point. No emotion, no connection. Next, what do I want them to see? Now, this isn't just about visuals. It's about helping them see a new possibility, a new truth, or perhaps a new version of themselves. Stories are the delivery system for perspective shift. And then number 3, what do I want them to do? What's the next step? What belief, what behavior or action should this story lead them to? If your story can't answer all 3, it's just not ready yet. If it can, that story is ready to do the work on your behalf. And here's something else I want to make clear. You don't need a wild or dramatic story to move people. You don't need to have survived cancer or climbed Mount Kilimanjaro or had a near-death experience. You don't need to have built an 8-figure business from a basement or sold everything you owned and traveled the world. You just need a moment, a real moment, where something shifted for you. Some of my most effective stories came from moments so small that they almost passed me by. Like the time I forgot a key line I had to improvise on stage. Like a conversation with a client that hit me harder than it hit them. And like a rejection email that really made me question my path. No fireworks, no violin soundtrack, just clarity, just realization, just a change. That's all a good story needs. Because when you tell those kinds of stories with meaning, with connection, with purpose, your audience doesn't just listen. They see themselves. They feel understood. And that is when the magic happens. That's when your message becomes more than a message. It becomes theirs. So now that you understand why stories matter, why emotional alignment is the name of the game, and why transformation, not entertainment, is what separates good speakers from unforgettable ones, let's talk about structure. Because this is where a lot of speakers get stuck. They say things like, well, I don't know which story to tell. I've got some ideas, but how do I organize them? How do I keep my story from becoming nothing more than a ramble? All those are real questions. They're legitimate concerns. So if you've been there, you are not broken. You're just early in the process. And here's what I tell every speaker that I work with, whether they're stepped onto their first stage or maybe they're just preparing for their next TED Talk. You don't need a dozen stories to build a super powerful talk. You just need a structure that works. And for that, I've got you covered. Let me introduce you to what I call the 3-story talk structure. Now, this is the simplest, the most flexible way to craft one solid, emotionally engaging talk without overthinking or overbuilding. Now, let me be clear. This is not the only way to build a talk. And it's not the full range of storytelling that you will eventually use. But this is a foundation. It's a starting point. It's a fast track to flow. As you grow in your storytelling mastery, you will develop all kinds of powerful story types. You'll develop your passion story, your entrepreneur's journey, your hero's guide story, and even some fixed up fables. But when you're building a talk today, this 3-story structure will carry you. And here's how it breaks down. Number 1, the connection story. It answers the question, why should the audience trust you? This is where you build rapport. It's the moment where your audience sees that you're not just a talking head with a microphone, but you're a human. You've struggled, you've failed, you've doubted, and you're willing to share. A connection story doesn't make you look weak. It makes you look real. And when you're real, people lean in. This story does not have to be long. In fact, shorter is really better. Just a moment that says, I get it. I've been where you are, and you are not alone. When your audience feels that, you've bought yourself their full attention. Number 2, the lesson story answers the question, what can the audience learn from you? Once you've built trust, now you deliver insight, but not in the form of a lecture or a list. You show, you don't tell. You reveal a moment when the light bulb came on for you, and you walk them through it. The beauty of a good lesson story is that it teaches without sounding like you're teaching. People remember the story, and they walk away with the message. Now, the key here is clarity. Don't cram 5 lessons into one story. One story, one takeaway, one shift. That's what sticks. And then number 3, the CTA, or the call to action story, answers the question, why should I and the audience act now? This is the closer. It's the finisher. It's the moment that brings everything together and calls your audience forward. The call to action story is the story of possibility. It could be your own breakthrough. It could be a client success story, a turning point that made all the difference. Whatever it is, it should highlight a very clear before and after. Before the story, stuck, confused, and hesitant. After the story, clarity, action, and movement. Now, here is the real power. The call to action story invites the audience to write themselves into the next chapter. You're saying this can be you too, if you're willing to take the next step. And that is what drives action. When you use these 3 stories, the connection story, the lesson story, and a call to action story, you create a very natural flow. Trust, which flows to value, which flows to movement. And that's how you go from just giving a talk to creating transformation. And like I said earlier, this framework is a launch pad. It's not a lid. As you grow, you will build a deep, a versatile story bank that you can pull from. You'll develop your passion story, which illustrates your why. You'll develop your entrepreneur's journey to inspire and sell. Your hero's guide story, which will establish credibility and leadership. And even fixed up fables, which are stories from other people's experiences, or maybe a metaphorical tale that still delivers a very powerful message. But the 3-story talk structure, it gets you moving with clarity and confidence. And once it's working, then you can layer on the rest. That's how professionals build talks that grow with them. So let's take a breath and zoom out for a moment. You've just learned how to turn your next talk into something truly unforgettable. You've got a clear three-part structure that builds trust, delivers value, and drives action. You understand that story is not just for entertainment. It's the emotional vehicle for transformation. And you've seen how one well-placed story can make your message 10 times more powerful. Now, the real question, are you going to think about using this? Or are you going to build it right now while the clarity and the momentum are fresh? Because here's what I know after more than 7,500 talks and decades of coaching speakers. Most people get inspired, but they don't implement. Not because they don't care, not because they don't want to be great, but because they don't have a guide. They don't have a structure, a tool to help them move forward fast. Now, that's why I created a mini course to help you take this further, faster, without overwhelm or guesswork. It's called Next Stage Storytelling. Transform your message, transfix your audience, and triumph in every talk. This is a streamlined, practical course that helps you clarify your message so you're never scrambling to figure out what to say. It helps you craft your connection story, your lesson story, and your call to action stories using proven prompts and frameworks. And it'll help you learn to open strong, to hold attention, and deliver with clarity and confidence. And yes, I even threw in some bonus AI prompts to help you brainstorm, sharpen, and rehearse on your own. Now, the entire system is $37. That's it. Less than a dinner out or even a round of drinks after a networking event. And you'll walk away with a toolkit you can use again and again for your talks, for your webinars, for your sales presentations, anytime you need your message to land and stick. So here's your next step. Click on the link in the show notes and grab your copy of Next Stage Storytelling. Transform your message, transfix your audience, and triumph in every talk. And hey, if this episode helped you, if it inspired you or maybe challenged you, hit that subscribe button, leave a comment or a review, and check out the other episodes that we've designed to help take your speaking, your stories, and your message delivery to the next stage. Because your voice matters, your story matters, and the world is waiting for what you have to say. Let's make sure they never forget it. I can't wait to see you on the next stage.